All right, y'all, so I bought this desert rose in the early spring. This is one of my first ones that I've ever really even owned. When I bought this pot with the desert roses in it, there was 3 in here, and I put all 3 of them in one pot, and I'm quickly finding out that is a mistake. So we're gonna go ahead and split these up, and I'm gonna show you how to repot these, lift them, and expose some of those beautiful roots. So the first thing we're gonna do is put on rubber gloves because the sap of the desert rose can be toxic, so I don't want it to be on my hands or get in my eye or anything like that. So just wear some gloves as a precaution. The next thing you're gonna need is some soil. We have some Soul Soil Succulent Gritty Mix here. This is one of my favorite things to use with my succulents, which Adeniums are succulents. So we're gonna go ahead and use this stuff. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and pick our pots out. I like to go with terracotta on desert roses. I thought about using these. I bought these the other day, but I think these are already too small. So we're gonna go with a shorter terracotta pot, but it's really wide, and it's gonna allow us to display those awesome desert rose roots. And then we've got an all-purpose bin right here. I like to keep these around so when I'm dumping my old soil out, I can go and add it to my collection, mix it all up, and then use it for other projects. I'm gonna gently loosen some of the soil on top and get these desert roses out of here. You don't want to just go ripping these out of the soil and damaging those root systems. So I'm gonna be very gentle as I'm emptying this pot out. And I hit some ants, awesome. No, it's okay right now. They're not bad. They're crazy ants, they're not regular ants. All right, so this is why you don't want to plant a bunch of them in one pot. You can see how the roots are starting to grow together. Go ahead and spread them out in here. And the reason I'm going with something like Soul Soils is because I use black dirt with this. And you can see this soil, I haven't watered this in a couple days, but it's still really moist. I don't want that. I want the soil to drain really, really fast and not hold moisture because you can get root rot on these really, really easily. So I'm gonna kind of go and untangle these. But check it out. They kind of grow like potatoes. Look at that cool root system. We're not gonna do any pruning or anything like that. We're just going to be doing a lift and a up potting. Okay. That's the smallest one. I got this little guy right here. Just going to try to remove most of the black soil, and then as I'm going through, I'm checking out the base of the Caudex. This is called the Caudex, and looking for any signs of rot or any signs of damage from the up potting. And you can see right here, this is prime example of why these guys were way too closely potted together. This root is starting to curl. It was curling around. This root right here, starting to curl. Right here. All right, so that's another beautiful one right there. I don't know the variety of these. The person I bought them from, all it said was who they came from. They didn't say what variety they are. I believe they made, I want to say they made like a whitish yellow flower though. Can't remember though. I need to take better care of identifying my plants. And this is the big one right here. The pot actually had 4 Adeniums, or the desert roses, in the pot, and I took one out and gave it to my dad. And this is the biggest one. I kept the biggest one for myself, obviously. And you can kind of feel right here, it's a little soft, a little softer than I'd like it to be. The way desert roses work, so these are going to be like in desert climates or tropical climates, mostly in places where they don't get a whole lot of water. And what happens is they shrink all year in the dry seasons, and then in the wet seasons, when they finally get water, they blow up. They swell up with water. All the water is stored in the Caudex. So sometimes people in the bonsai community won't water theirs for like 6 months, and then they'll hit it with some water, and it blows up to like 2 to 3 times the width. It's crazy. So yeah. All right, so we got our desert roses good to go, just like that. And the old soil wasn't too bad. I had some leca and some gravel mixed in, but this new stuff is going to be really nice. You can see I had a little bit of crazy ant action in there, which is fine. Not too big of a deal. So just like in the original pot, you can see I've got this little disc, and it kind of keeps the smaller pieces of the soil from coming out. You just attach it from the bottom with a little piece of wire. I'll do the same thing with our new pots. We'll go ahead and zoom right down here. We can put this one down here. Man, this is my new, you like my new table? It's freaking awesome. All right, so we got our new pots. Shout out to Jorge. He actually gave me these. His kids were gonna paint them. Anytime my buddy Jorge at Jorge's Hidden Gardens does a landscaping job, they have pots. He usually brings them home if they don't want them. And I get to go scavenge his nursery graveyard and go get some of this nice stuff. So shout out to Jorge for these. So we're gonna go ahead and take our little wafer, and then we're gonna put it right here, down in the pot. We'll take our bonsai wire, make a U, and then we're going to go straight down in between, just like that. And then we'll flatten it on the bottom. And I'll come back and I'll cut the excess off. But that's going to hold our little wafer in place. All right, I made the judgment call. We're going to go ahead and put the two bigger ones in these wider terracotta pots. Just like that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put this little one in the smaller pot. Now there's a reason why I'm doing this. You might think, why wouldn't you go for a bigger pot, a pot just like this for this one? The reason I'm doing this is because the more that's below the soil, the bigger that Caudex is gonna grow. And this one is like half or maybe a third of the size of this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this one in a deeper pot and allow it to make a bigger Caudex before I go ahead and put it in a different pot or a bigger pot, just to save some space. So what I'm going to do, I'll take the old pot, old dirt down here. Actually, I'll put it right here so I'll catch whatever I drop. And you can see, I've ripped my gloves. The part I was most worried about, the pulling up, is where I wanted the gloves on. So should be good now. I'm going to rip this bag. I love a good bag rip. Notice, there we go. Throw that in the waste down there. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is figure out what height I want this desert rose. So you can see it's kind of got some roots right there, roots right here. I want to, that's what I was kind of thinking. I was like, I can probably sit it. So I'm thinking this height right here is probably pretty good. And you can even come back afterwards and snip off some of the higher roots that are above the soil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put down some soils in the middle. I'm going to try to kind of create like a little bit of a hill in the middle. I kind of make a hill in the middle, and then I'm going to set my Adenium down here and kind of nestle it into the top, just like so. And I might even go a little bit higher. You don't have to have that much of the actual plant in the soil. This is called a lift. So we're actually going to be lifting the Adenium to expose more of this root. Every 6 months to a year, you can take your Adenium and lift it up more and more to expose, you know, basically the potato side of the plant, that Adenium base. I'm going to go ahead and fill up the sides with this succulent grading mix. And check out that mix. It's a nice mix of pumice, you got some lava rock, you got some leca, some calcined clay, a lot of cool materials in here. And what it's going to do is that pine bark mulch is going to be able to absorb water, but it's also not going to hold that much water. You know what I mean? It's going to absorb some water, but at the same time allow for really quick drainage and not flood these roots. Because that's the last thing you want, is soil that's going to hold a ton of water and rot your roots. These are really easy to rot. Right now I've been watering them every other day, but in the fall I won't even water these at all. Like this one won't get water for like another month after this. We're going to add some more soil. And as I go, I'm going to go through and I'm going to use this chopstick to actually poke down into the soil. And you can actually see when I do it, soil starts to go down and under the roots. You'll get these air pockets on your plants, and that's where water will start to collect. So you want to go ahead and make sure you're packing your roots in, and using a chopstick, especially on this type of material, is super helpful. You'll see already how much it's sunk, and then we'll top it off again. Big old chunkers. All right, so like I was saying earlier, if you want to, you can go ahead and you can prune off a couple of these that are kind of above the soil, and we'll go ahead and take that one off, maybe even this one. You know, I could leave these and it'd be fine. This root is actually okay. Let's see. This little one right here, go ahead and snip it off. I had a sharper pair of pruners. There we go. And then we'll leave this one. This one is actually touching soil. So we're really looking for a nice root to be appearing at the top. So the reason I'm planting these in a shallower pot is so that it'll develop roots, but I'll start to get a thick trunk. And what I like to do, and I learned this from Miss Maria. She has a YouTube channel. She's a crazy lady down in Miami, and she is all about adeniums and plumerias and stuff. And whenever she makes a cut, she actually takes some ground cinnamon and puts it on the cut. Now, anytime you make a cut on a desert rose, you don't really have to do this, because the latex is actually going to seal the cut. But ground cinnamon apparently has antifungal properties, and so it'll hopefully help it from getting some kind of rot or disease while it's healing up. And then once we're done, yeah, and it also helps with ants. Ground cinnamon, whenever ants come around it, if it's in the powder form, once it's wet, it won't work. But if it's in the powder form, an ant sucks it up and it asphyxiates them. They die. So ground cinnamon is really cool for that. So real quick, we'll go ahead and we'll get these potted, and then we'll put them away, and I'll show you what to do. For the little one, we're going to go ahead and plant this one a little bit deeper. Still going to use the same soil mixture, but we're going to let this Caudex fatten up. I lifted these a little bit higher because it's about to be in a couple months when they start to go dormant. But I want to go ahead and give this one a little bit more time to actually grow that fat Caudex before I go ahead and lift it as high as I did these. And make sure to stay tuned for this, because we'll be doing some pruning as well and some propagations with the desert roses, because every year you're supposed to prune them, and what happens is so I would go ahead and prune this piece off probably right here, and what happens is they split. So you cut the top off, you can propagate it, but you have it right here and it splits in the spring. So really cool, and add some more layers. You see how this one is split on top? It's been pruned. These have actually all been grafted as well. This was a base desert rose, and they grafted a top onto it. But every year you prune a little bit off, do your propagations, and keep it going, baby. Kind of keep it in the center of the pot. I like the terracotta pots because they're heavier. So if this does get tall and kind of lanky like it is right now, which I don't think that'll continue now that I've got them split up. You can see how lanky this one was getting because it was getting root bound in that pot with the other ones. Now that it's got its own pot and it can kind of spread its wings and fly, it shouldn't be as bad. Then just like before, we'll go ahead and poke the chopstick down and get some of those air bubbles out. Air pockets, not bubbles, just not, this isn't water. Got good compaction, good to go. All right, so now we're gonna take our newly transplanted desert roses, go stick them in the greenhouse under the shade cloth and kind of keep them away from water. We're not gonna water these for probably about a week or so. Let those roots get established before we do anything. Some people don't water again for like a month or so. These have kind of gotten accustomed to being a little bit wetter here in my garden, especially because I'm not as discreet watering as I should be. But I know they need to be in the shade to recover, so let's take them over there. All right, we'll go ahead and set them next to the other desert roses that I got over here. It was getting so hot. I know these love the heat. I know they love full sun, but it was getting so hot here in Texas. And you can see I got a bunch that I need to repot. All right, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, drop them down below and let me know what you want to see in the next video. See you next time.